Salutations everyone, this is Razor bringing you guys another Overwatch video where today we're going to be talking about the overall balance in the game, what are some buffs and nerfs we would like to see, and before we get into that we have to figure out what the issues are before we go about solving them. So obviously the big elephant in the room is Sojourn. She is just hyper dominant. The playoffs of the Overwatch League really came down to mainly two things. Does your Sojourn get a early pick one-shot headshot with the railgun, or do you have a Kitsune rush to counter their Kitsune rush? Right, that's pretty much how the playoffs went, and made it a little less entertaining than it could have been. But this character, as I said before, she has everything you could possibly want. High intense mobility, can't really be dove on. She has a high damage, a large AoE CC move, and that's not even the thing that's complained about. It's the railgun, the one-shot headshot that you're getting constantly, especially with your ult. It's just over and over and over again. And Blizzard did address it. They said that, oh, she's not dominating at lower ranks, so we're not going to nerf her. Which is a very interesting stance to take, considering you've never taken that stance before. Widowmaker has existed for 6 years, and she has never been dominant at lower ranks. And she has been meta for, at the highest ranks for a decent chunk of time. You could also say that about Tracer. We really only see Tracers up in Grandmasters top 500s. I mean, you do see her, even with the nerfs that felt were definitely unwarranted. I mean, you go about, hey, flankers are going to be really strong with there being only one tank and yada, 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 and you decided to nerf Tracer before Sombra and Genji, who were way better in the beta, and that was a very weird choice. I don't think she needed to be nerfed really at all. And Genji did get nerfed, as well as D.Va, which I also don't understand that change. They said it themselves. D.Va isn't even in the top 4 for non-mirrored win percentages. So, like, we did hear some, especially new players complaining about how strong D.Va was, but Zarya was way stronger. Yes, she did get nerfed. I would say Sigma was better, and he didn't get touched. Not saying that he needed to be. He definitely did not, and everybody seems weak right now because Roadhog is just the god, right? So we absolutely need to address that. Besides Sojourn being the biggest problem, even at lower levels like myself, I'm not a DPS player. I have less than a dozen games played as Sojourn. Yeah, in this game I go 57-9, like I'm a Sojourn player or something, and it's not like I'm getting charge shot headshots every time. I get like 1 or 2 in this whole game. It's just all with the railgun to finish someone off like that right there, or getting just tons of freaking damage with my orb of destruction. It's just that Sojourn has every single strength outside the fact that she can't heal herself and she doesn't have a shield. Like, those are the only 2 things you could say that could be improved on her. But outside of that, she has everything. She's not diveable. She's really good at close range. She's really good at long range. She's really good against shields. She's really good against no shields. So she can take high ground. She cannot get dove on. So it's crazy. And she has a great ultimate. I mean, take a look at Widowmaker. She only has one-shot headshot potential. And her ultimate is one of the worst in the game. It's useful, especially for her. But let's face it, it's no Riptire, it's no Dragon Blade, it's no Death Blossom. It's nothing to write home about. It's not a game, a fight swinging ultimate. That's just not something that happens. And Sojourn has the one-shot headshot and 1,000 other things that make her really good. Widowmaker in the mid fight, at close range, she's got nothing. Widow's Kiss alternate fire doesn't do anything compared to what Sojourn's primary fire does, and so it's ridiculous. I think we can all agree on that. And another problem right now with the addition of Kiriko, which I could see Kiriko getting nerfed. Kitsune Rush is definitely one of the best ultimates in the game. Some people would argue the best, and you can definitely see that at the highest levels. But it's top 4, probably top 3 ultimate in the game. It's just really, really, really strong. If y'all have ever seen a Bob on a Kitsune rush path, you'll know what I mean. That stuff is crazy. That's like the friggin' helicopter gun from Predator. It just melts everything so quickly, as well as, you know, a lot of other things, a lot of other combinations, or just straight up firing using all of your cooldowns that come back much quicker. With her cleanse, Roadhog no longer has anything to worry about in this game, and that's why even at the highest levels, we are seeing Roadhogs dominate. You take a look at top 500 tanks, you see a lot of Roadhog as the first or second most used tank by that individual player. And that's something we've never seen before. And while I have always disliked when I had a Roadhog on my team because it was basically a throw, not that that was always the case or that he couldn't be useful, it's just that was the way that the game is. It was good when he wasn't great. I mean, it was still a problem for him to be useless as a tank, but he would be broken as fuck as a DPS, even though it's really what he is because he has no tanking capabilities. He can only help himself, but that's, I guess, no longer what a tank is, especially with, you know, we have Doomfist and Wrecking Ball, which are easily the 2 worst tanks and probably the 2 worst characters in the entire game. So they need changes or buffs or something. I mean, Doomfist probably needs less amount of changes because we did see him capable in the beta, at the very least, of Overwatch 2. And even though Roadhog on paper is a good matchup against him, he still wasn't used even at the highest levels, right, to counterplay against the Doomfist. But Wrecking Ball has nothing that he can do to help the team. He was great as an initiating tank in Overwatch 1 or as just a solo flanker character, right? But as the only tank, he's not very useful. He's got a good ult and he can dive, but his damage isn't what, say, Roadhog can do. His consistency isn't what Zarya and Orisa can do. And he doesn't have the long-range poke ability, dive ability at a you know, a quick pace like Winston does. And he doesn't have the ability to, like, do a high, quick amount of damage as well as Doomfist can. So yeah, Wrecking Ball and Doomfist definitely need help. I feel like Orisa's in a good spot. Reinhardt can work. I feel like still the case is if one tank is getting pocketed and the other tank isn't, the pocketed tank will win every time, regardless of what tanks that are being played. I mean, if you have a Mercy pocket on anything, it's going to be any other tank. That's just how it works at the lower levels, and that can be upsetting when either you don't have that on your team or your team does not counteract that pocket. Either the Mercy or, you know, even the Kiriko, she definitely has pocket healing capabilities. If she just solo heals, she can play very much like a Mercy, and her cleanse gives you a little bit more leeway to have larger windows of defense and uptime for your tank. And she doesn't need to be offensive, even though she can be very much more so than Mercy can. But you know, Reinhardt, he has his place, and D.Va, while she is unnecessarily weaker when she didn't need to be, you know, obviously a Winston is definitely playable, but Roadhog there's nothing that can stop him now. There's absolutely nothing that can stop him. You take a look at the roster and you look at the interactions, right? Roadhog against D.Va. Defense Matrix does not stop Hook, and a Defense Matrix does not last as long as Whole Hog. And you can stop the Whole Hog while she's Defense Matrixing it, and then hook her, and then continue to Whole Hog her. So there's nothing that D.Va can do against him. His ability to heal constantly at a high tick of health, as well as having that damage mitigation, means there's no downtime for Roadhog. But if D.Va doesn't have her thrusters, she's low HP, or she doesn't have her Defense Matrix, You know, she needs 2 of those things to be survivable or to be a tank that can dive into the backline or on a squishy target. Doomfist easily hooked through power block, or when he when he isn't punching, which is going to be a fraction of a second. Junker Queen, while she does still have a really good ultimate and can be serviceable if she is being pocketed, that's an easy hook for Roadhog. And yes, she can heal / speed boost herself, but Roadhog heals more and does more damage and just beats her. Like, a lot of people don't understand how much of this game comes down to the tank v tank interaction. That's everything. Like, that's the whole ball game. Orisa, serviceable, right? She has the Fortify to not get hooked, as well as the Spinning Javelin to block damage and not get hooked. But Whole Hog doesn't care if you're fortified. Whole Hog lasts a lot longer than your Spinny Javelin. And Orisa's ultimate is super weak. I think that needs a buff for her to be a more suitable hero in a lot of circumstances, because it doesn't matter if you're a slow, squishy target with no movement capabilities. You just walk right out, you know, unless you're stuck in a corner or you get comboed with some other sort of CC. Orisa's ultimate is not getting value. Speaking of not getting value, Doomfist probably has the worst ultimate, and that needs to be some change, a change there. If we're going to talk about tank ultimates, his is by far the worst. So that needs a huge buff. Reinhardt, he has a shield that Hog can poke at range with a lot of damage, and when he doesn't have the shield, hook, smash. And you think, well, if he gets hooked, Reinhardt's in close range. That's when he does most of his damage. Yeah, Roadhog does more damage, and he can heal himself while mitigating damage from that hammer swing. You know, he can get hammered. That is one thing that Reinhardt has in that matchup. The Fire Strike's not going to do anything against Roadhog, but Roadhog has that advantage too. Sigma, you have to be perfect to counteract the Roadhog, because he can play around your shield because that's on a cooldown and it's quite weak. So you can destroy it quickly, and Kinetic Grasp can be hooked and also paused during Whole Hog to get hooked for. Winston has the bubble to sort of play around it, but he is an easy hook target, and he doesn't have... even if he has the leap, he's still getting hooked, he's still getting shot. He needs more support than Roadhog does, because Roadhog supports himself. Wrecking Ball, he's rolling around, he goes for a dive, he slams down, hook. Damage, he has to roll away or die. He's got no other options. Zarya, yes, she has 2 bubbles, but there's a much bigger window for her to be hooked now. And the amount of damage that she does at full charge can be fearsome, but Roadhog doesn't need to wait to be full charged for anything to be fearsome. He always has the hook. He can always one-shot a squishy. He always has that capability. So those are all the tank interactions against Roadhog, and as you can see, nothing beats him. Like, you get slept and antied. Sure, that is an easy way to deal with him. He's an easy sleep target, but he's also an easy cleanse target for Kiriko. You still do have to hit that. But not a lot of people are playing Ana right now, and a lot of people are playing Kiriko. Not that you're always going to have a Kiriko to worry about that cleanse, and that cleanse does have a longer cooldown than an anti-nade for comparison. But the interactions between the tanks need to be more interactive for there to be a better balance that makes for a more competitive game, especially with how strong DPS are. As you can see in this game, not that this is the end-all be-all example, but playing DPS isn't very hard. You only have one tank to worry about, which your tank is worrying about if they're playing correctly, right? And the backlines are quite easy to get into, and if you're something like Sojourn who can't be dove on, or a soldier that's being ignored on the high ground, healing himself with his healing station, or a Junkrat's power is crazy, and there's nothing that can stop him. No shields can stop him, no bubbles can stop him. His damage is incredible, and he's super easy to use. Roadhog doesn't take a lot of skill, and you have to have like a Sigma playing perfectly around him, always rocking his healing, and always having his shield ready and off of cooldown so he can reposition, but he also can't be too close to the Roadhog because he can just walk right through the shield, but he also can't do enough damage to take out Roadhog by himself, while Roadhog does have enough damage to take on any tank by himself. So those interactions need to be more competitive. They need to be less one-sided. And because damage is so easy, your tank can't deal with them because they have to deal with Roadhog, right? Whenever you have an oppressive tank, that's what your tank has to focus on. You can't peel with Zarya or Diva or Winston nearly as much when you have to deal with Roadhog. Because if you don't deal with Roadhog, then he wipes out your entire team by himself. But Sojourn can also do that while Roadhog takes a full minute to kill with, you know, perfect precision of your cooldowns, and maybe his cooldown has to be off-timed or used at the wrong time, and he doesn't have his ultimate. Because right now, Whole Hog is one of the best ultimates in the game. There's not really anything that can stop it. Defense Matrix does not last long enough. Kinetic Grasp does not last long enough. And you can cancel the Whole Hog for a brief amount of time, hook either of those abilities, and then continue to Whole Hog. Whole Hog does not get stopped by a Reinhardt shield or a Winston shield or a Sigma shield. So Whole Hog is... it's the ultimate right now. It's better than EMP. It's better than Sojourn's ultimate, which can one-shot the entire team in just 5 shots, right? So those interactions need to be changed. Obviously, Moira is an issue. You can out-damage and out-elim any DPS out there with a lot of consistency. She can escape, she can do a ton of damage, she can finish off quick kills from a dive with that biotic orb, as well as do the most burst healing in the game. Sure, she doesn't have, like, you know, the umbrella of Baptiste, but she is still incredibly strong defensively as well as offensively. She can even dual tanks. That's how strong Moira is. And Brigitte is pretty weak. Her ultimate is just bad. We need a change to an ultimate. We knew that it was said a while ago that it was coming, but right now it's just sound barrier, but slower and worse because it's just heals. It's no armor. We don't get an additional speed boost or additional fire rate like Kitsune Rush, and we don't have instant barriers like the oh shit that sound barrier can be to stop a Diva Bomb or an Earth Shatter from wiping out the entire team. It doesn't have that capability. It's just a slow build of heals over time. And she needs something better than that to be viable, especially when there's so much damage and so much mitigation coming out from something like Roadhog, who can still one-shot a squishy. His ability to do that has not changed a whole lot. He still can do that, and that is a bit too much power put into a package that is so easy to play. And even though Sojourn isn't as easy as some characters, it's still way too easy to get this kind of value out of her. And those are the changes that we are going to need in Overwatch 2.